in the heart of Stonehaven, Oregon, where egos clashed louder than bodies on the mat. A black woman stepped into Apex Martial Arts Academy, her quiet presence a defiance of the room's unspoken rules. Sarah Jackson, 30, faced a sea of smirks and whispers, her race and gender a punchline to the gym's reigning champion, Ethan Carter. He was a black belt, untouchable, his posters plastered on every wall. But in 14 seconds, Sarah turned his world upside down. A single triangle choke, her legs a vice around his neck, forced his tap, and his pride crumbled. The grainy video exploded online. But this wasn't just a fight. Beneath Sarah's calm exterior lay a secret forged in covert ops, a past tied to a brother she thought was dead. Those 14 seconds weren't just a win, they were a battle cry for a soul the world tried to break. Before we continue Sarah's story, tell us, where are you watching from? And if this moment stirred something in you, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder of what quiet strength truly looks like. Now, let's get back to it, because Sarah Jackson is just getting started. The rain-slicked parking lot of Apex Martial Arts Academy shimmered under Stonehaven. Oregon's sodium streetlights, the faint thump of bodies hitting mats seeping through the concrete walls like a distant heartbeat. Sarah Jackson sat in her faded blue Honda Civic, her calloused fingers tracing a jagged scar across her left knuckles, a memento from a life she'd buried deep. At 30, she was a stranger in this small coastal city, her black hoodie and worn gray sweatpants chosen to blend into the shadows. But blending in was a pipe dream here, not for a black woman stepping into a gym where bro culture wasn't just a vibe, it was the law. The neon sign above the entrance flickered, casting an eerie glow on her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her dark eyes, sharp and unyielding, held a story no one in Stonehaven could read. She zipped her hoodie, grabbed a battered gym bag, and stepped into the drizzle, her boots splashing in shallow puddles. This wasn't just a gym. It was a battlefield. And Sarah was no stranger to war. Inside, the air was thick with sweat, rubber mats, and the tang of disinfectant, undercut by a current of unspoken judgment. Men in crisp G's, white, blue, purple belts, moved with the swagger of those who owned the space, their laughter bouncing off the mirrored walls. At the front desk, Tyler Brooks, a wiry 20-something with a fade haircut and a gold chain, leaned over his phone, scrolling through Instagram. He barely glanced up as Sarah approached. "You sure you're in the right place?" he asked, his smirk mirrored by a group of students stretching on the mat behind her. Their eyes raked over her, sizing her up like a stray who'd wandered into the wrong pack. Sarah's gaze locked onto Tyler's, unflinching, her voice low but steady, cutting through the snickers. "I'm sure." She slid a crumpled 20 across the counter for the drop-in fee, her movements deliberate, betraying nothing. Tyler raised an eyebrow but handed her a waiver, muttering something about newbies under his breath. Sarah signed it with a quick, precise scrawl, ignoring the whispers. What's she doing here? That followed her like a shadow. She stepped onto the mat, the rubber cool beneath her bare feet, and the room stilled. 24 pairs of eyes turned, their scrutiny of physical weight. Men paused mid-drill, their GS rustling, as if her presence disrupted some sacred rhythm. Coach Derek Lawson, 45, strode forward, his stocky frame dwarfed by the black belt cinched tight around his gut. His graying buzz cut and perpetual scowl screamed ex-cop, the kind who thrived on intimidation. "Ever trained before, sweetheart?" he asked, his tone dripping with doubt, the word sweetheart, a barb wrapped in a smile. Sarah's jaw tightened, but her expression stayed neutral, her past locked behind a wall no one here could breach. "Some," she replied, her voice flat, offering nothing more. Lawson's grin was all teeth, a predator sizing up prey. Some, huh? We don't coddle newbies here. Let's see what you've got. He clapped his hands, signaling the class to begin, his eyes never leaving her, as if daring her to crack. The warm-up was a gauntlet, designed to break the weak, burpees, shrimping drills, and forward rolls that left the untrained gasping. Sarah mirrored every move with eerie precision, her breathing controlled, her movements fluid, like water carving through stone. Her hoodie clung to her skin, but she didn't falter, even as Lawson barked corrections at her alone. "Knees higher, newbie!" he shouted, though her form was flawless, paired with Tyler for guard-passing drills. She endured his rough handling, his elbow digging into her thigh as he muscled through her guard with more force than finesse. When it was her turn, she flowed like a specter, her knee-cut pass so clean it left Tyler sprawling, his scowl deepening as he scrambled to his feet. "Lucky shot," he muttered. But a few onlookers paused, their curiosity flickering. A skinny white belt, Lucas Reed, 22 with glasses and a nervous tick, caught her eye. His nod almost imperceptible. Sarah filed it away, sensing an ally in the sea of hostility. As the class wound down, the energy shifted, the air thickening with anticipation. A tall figure pushed through the double doors, his presence commanding the room like a storm rolling in. Ethan Carter, 28, Apex's golden boy. A black belt whose chiseled jaw and cocky grin adorned every poster on the walls. His GI was pristine, his stride effortless, as if the mat belonged to him alone. He did a double take at Sarah, his hazel eyes narrowing, then laughed, loud enough to echo off the rafters. "Yo, coach, we running a women's self-defense class now?" The room erupted, a chorus of snickers and fist bumps, the sound grating against Sarah's nerves. Lawson chuckled, shaking his head, but didn't correct him. Sarah stood silent, her hands loose at her sides, her jaw tight. She didn't need to speak. Her presence was answer enough, a challenge they couldn't yet comprehend. Ethan's smirk lingered as he sauntered to the locker room, tossing a final jab over his shoulder. "Don't hurt yourself, rookie." That night, in her sparse apartment on the edge of Stonehaven, Sarah knelt before a locked wooden box, its surface worn from years of travel. The room was bare, a mattress on the floor, a single lamp casting long shadows. She turned the key, revealing a military belt, its patches marking a unit that didn't exist on any official record. Next to it, a faded photo, Sarah and her brother, David Jackson, in desert fatigues, their smiles bright against a war-torn sky. David, 2 years older, had been her anchor, her partner in a world of shadows, until a helicopter crash in 2017 stole him away. Or so she'd been told. The official report had been clinical. No survivors. No bodies recovered. She'd carried that grief like a blade in her chest, sharp and unrelenting. "I'm not here to lose, David," she whispered, her voice trembling, the photo blurring through unshed tears. She snapped the box shut, her reflection in the window staring back. A woman forged in fire, her resolve hardening like steel. Apex was just the beginning. Whatever Stonehaven threw at her, Sarah Jackson was ready to fight. 3 days after her bruising introduction to Apex Martial Arts Academy, Sarah Jackson returned, her membership paid in crumpled 20s, each bill a quiet act of defiance against Tyler Brooks' raised eyebrow. The rain had stopped, but Stonehaven's coastal chill clung to her black hoodie as she stepped through the gym's double doors, the neon sign buzzing overhead. The hostility hadn't softened. Whispers trailed her like smoke, and the mat felt like a gauntlet waiting to crush her. But Sarah's will was iron, forged in missions she'd never speak of, in nights spent staring at a photo of her brother, David, whose death she'd mourned for years. She wrapped her hands with black athletic tape, each loop a meditation, tethering her to the discipline that had kept her alive. Her plain white gi, unadorned, stood in stark contrast to the sponsor-patched uniforms of Apex's elite. A silent declaration. She wasn't here to blend in. She was here to burn through their world. Class began with takedown drills, the air thick with grunts and the slap of bodies on rubber. Coach Derek Lawson, his scowl deeper than before, paired Sarah with Mason, a brown belt built like a linebacker, his shaved head gleaming under the fluorescent lights. "I'll go easy," Mason sneered, his double-leg takedown more shove than technique, slamming Sarah to the mat with a force that jarred her ribs. Pain flared, but she sprang up, her sprawl on his next attempt so precise it forced a grunt from him, his bulk no match for her timing. When her turn came, her single-leg takedown caught him off balance, her shoulder driving into his thigh, nearly toppling him. He recovered with brute strength, slamming her down again, his breath hot with irritation. "That's not skill," Sarah said, her voice low, steady. "It worked, didn't it?" Mason shot back, wiping sweat from his brow, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Sarah's movements weren't just skilled, they were surgical, honed in places these men couldn't imagine. The drills grew brutal, a test of endurance designed to break the weak. Lawson's voice cut through the chaos, singling her out. "Move faster, newbie!" Sarah's hoodie clung to her skin, but her breathing stayed even, a soldier's control, her dark eyes scanning the room for threats. During a water break, Lucas Reed, the skinny white belt with glasses, approached, his hands fidgeting as he offered an ice pack. "For your shoulder," he whispered, glancing at Tyler, who was laughing with Mason nearby. "Tyler's a jerk. You held your own today. They don't admit that to anyone different." His eyes flicked to a whiteboard ranking Apex's top students, all male, all white. Ethan Carter's name at the top in bold red. Sarah nodded, tucking away his kindness, sensing a crack in the gym's armored hostility. Lucas was young, 22, probably a college kid, but his quiet empathy marked him as an ally in a place where trust was scarce. In the women's locker room, sparse and half the size of the men's. Sarah caught the eye of Emily Hayes, a 26-year-old blue belt with a buzzed undercut and sharp hazel eyes. Emily leaned against a locker, her GI loosened, her expression guarded. "You're good," she said, her voice clipped, precise. "My uncle, Coach Lawson, hates that. Watch your back." She slipped Sarah a crumpled note, a handwritten schedule of quiet training hours when Apex's alpha dogs were absent. Sarah studied her, the tension in Emily's jaw, the way her fingers twitched. "Why help me?" Sarah asked, her tone neutral but probing. Emily's gaze hardened. "Because I'm sick of his crap, too. This place suffocates anyone who doesn't fit their mold." She turned away, but the note burned in Sarah's hand. A lifeline in a sea of enemies. Emily, Lawson's niece, was a rebel in her own right, and Sarah filed that away, her instincts humming. That night, in her bare apartment. Sarah sat cross-legged on the floor, the wooden box open before her, the military belt inside, its patches faded, whispered of a unit that didn't exist. The photo of her and David in desert fatigues stared back, their smiles a painful echo of a life before loss. Her phone pinged, an encrypted email with no sender ID, and her pulse spiked. She opened it, her breath catching. A grainy photo of David, alive, standing in a Middle Eastern market. Time-stamped 2018, a year after his supposed death in a helicopter explosion in Syria. Her hands shook, memories flooding in, David teaching her to grapple in their Baltimore backyard, his laugh warm as summer, his promise to always have her back. Guilt clawed at her. She'd believed he was gone, had stopped looking, had buried him in her heart. "You're alive," she whispered, tears burning her eyes, her fingers tracing his face on the screen. The email held no message, no clue, but it was a spark, igniting a fire she thought had died. Back at Apex, the tension thickened like a storm brewing. Lawson watched Sarah like a hawk, his drills targeting her with extra scrutiny, his voice sharper when she was near. During a sparring session, Ethan Carter rolled with her, his grip punishing, his smirk constant. "You're wasting my time," he hissed, trying to muscle her into a rear-naked choke. Sarah slipped out, reversing into top mount with a speed that made his eyes widen, her elbow pressing just hard enough to make him wince before Lawson called time. Ethan shoved her off, his face flushed, but the room noticed. Whispers spread, and Lawson's scowl deepened. As class ended, he called her over, his voice dripping with challenge. "You think you're hot stuff. Newbie, prove it. Next week's our challenge day. You versus Ethan. Win. You get a year's membership free. Lose. You're out. Deal?" The room went quiet, all eyes on her. Sarah's pulse steadied, her mind racing through the stakes. This wasn't just a fight. It was a declaration. "Deal," she said, her voice like steel, her eyes locked on Lawson's. The spark had caught. Now, it was time to burn. The buzz around Apex Martial Arts Academy in Stonehaven, Oregon, had reached a fever pitch by the morning of Challenge Day, the air electric with anticipation and malice. Sarah Jackson, 30, stood in the shadows of the gym's locker room, her plain white GI crisp against her skin, her hands wrapped in black tape with the precision of a soldier preparing for battle. The past week had been a crucible. Taunts scrawled on her locker, posters mocking her as the newbie plastered across the gym, and Coach Derek Lawson's relentless drills designed to break her. But Sarah's resolve was unshakable. Forged in the fires of a past she kept locked away, in the memory of her brother, David, whose supposed death in 2017 haunted her. The email with his photo, time-stamped 2018, had ignited a spark she couldn't ignore. Today wasn't just about proving herself to Apex's toxic elite. It was about seizing the spotlight to find answers. As she stepped onto the mat, the crowd's jeers washed over her, but her dark eyes burned with purpose. Ethan Carter, the gym's golden boy, awaited, his smirk a promise of her defeat. Sarah wasn't here to play their game. She was here to rewrite it. The gym was a cauldron of noise, packed with students, local fighters, and curious onlookers drawn by rumors of the newbie who dared challenge Apex's champion. Ethan Carter, 28, stood at the center of the mat, his black belt gleaming, his chiseled frame radiating confidence. Posters of his victories lined the walls, but today, they were overshadowed by crude caricatures of Sarah, her face exaggerated, her GI mocked. Lawson, 45, his buzz cut glinting under the fluorescent lights, hyped the crowd, his voice booming, "Let's see if our newbie can last a minute with Ethan." The laughter was a blade, but Sarah stood tall, her breathing steady, her focus razor-sharp. Lucas Reed, the 22-year-old white belt who'd shown her kindness, hovered at the edge, his phone discreetly recording Emily Hayes, 26, Lawson's niece and a blue belt, caught Sarah's eye, her nod a silent vote of confidence. The mat cleared, and Lawson signaled the start. "Fight!" he barked, and the room leaned in, hungry for Sarah's humiliation. Ethan moved first, his stance low, his hands darting to grapple. He was fast, his double-leg takedown a blur, but Sarah was faster. She sprawled, her hips dropping, her forearms blocking his advance with textbook precision. The crowd's cheers faltered as she pivoted, her hands snaking to his collar, pulling him into her guard. Ethan's smirk vanished, his strength straining against her control. Sarah's legs moved like a trap springing shut, wrapping around his neck and arm in a triangle choke, her thighs a vice cutting off his blood flow. His face reddened, his taps frantic against her hip. 14 seconds from start to finish. The gym fell silent, a collective gasp replacing the jeers. Lawson's jaw tightened, his whistle frozen mid-air. Sarah released Ethan, standing calmly as he staggered to his feet, his pride in tatters. "Fluke," he spat, demanding a rematch. Lawson nodded, eager to salvage his star. The second round began, and Sarah was relentless, sweeping Ethan to the mat, transitioning to an armbar in 11 seconds. His tap echoed. Undeniable. The crowd erupted, some in shock, others in awe, Lucas's video capturing every moment. The aftermath was chaos. Ethan stormed off, shoving past Mason, who muttered about lucky breaks. Lawson's face was a mask of fury, his voice low as he hissed to Tyler, "She's done here." But the video, uploaded by Lucas to a local MMA forum, spread like wildfire, racking up thousands of views by nightfall. Comments flooded in, one catching Sarah's eye. "That's Phantom. Saw her move in Kabul, 2016, no newbie." The name Phantom sent a chill down her spine. Her code name from a unit that didn't exist, a past she'd buried, at her apartment. She replayed the video, her victory bittersweet. Fame wasn't her goal. It was a tool to find David, digging through the gym's trash after hours. She found a burner phone with a recorded call between Lawson and Ethan, plotting to get her out with a rigged injury. The conspiracy was deeper than she'd thought, and Apex wasn't just a gym, it was a front. That night, another encrypted email arrived. No sender ID. Sarah's pulse raced as she opened it. A grainy audio clip. A man's voice, Colonel Nathan Brooks. She recognized from her past, mentioning Shadowforge and the asset in play. Shadowforge was the program that had trained her and David, a Black Ops initiative that vanished after his death. The email ended with a warning. "They know you're Phantom. Stop digging, or he's gone for good." Her hands shook, guilt and hope warring within her. David was alive, but trapped in a game she didn't yet understand. She traced the scar on her knuckles, memories of sparring with him in their Baltimore backyard flooding back. His laugh, his promise to always protect her. She'd failed him once, believing he was dead. She wouldn't fail again. Back at Apex, the fallout was immediate. The video's virality brought reporters to Stonehaven, their cameras flashing as Sarah dodged interviews. Lawson doubled down, announcing stricter rules. But the gym's whiteboard rankings were defaced. Ethan's name scratched out. Lucas and Emily became her eyes and ears, reporting whispers of Lawson's shady deals. Sarah's victory had cracked Apex's facade, exposing its rot. As she prepared for the next move, her phone buzzed. A forum post tagged Phantom with a single line. "Check the Nevada files." Her past was catching up, and the fight was no longer just about the mat. Standing in the gym's empty parking lot, Sarah faced the rain, her voice a vow. 1 year free. Lawson. That's the deal. Those 14 seconds had changed everything, not just for Apex, but for her. The spark was now ablaze, and Sarah Jackson was ready to burn the lies to ash. The viral video of Sarah Jackson's 14-second triumph over Ethan Carter had turned Apex Martial Arts Academy into a battleground of public scrutiny, its once proud reputation unraveling like a frayed GI in Stonehaven, Oregon. The coastal town's gossip swirled, amplified by news vans parked outside the gym, their cameras hungry for a glimpse of the woman dubbed Phantom online. Sarah, 30, stood in her sparse apartment, the glow of her laptop casting shadows across her face as she scrolled through comments on the MMA forum. Hundreds of them, some praising her, others dissecting her moves with chilling accuracy. Phantom, Kabul, 2016, not a newbie, one read, the words a dagger to her carefully buried past. The email from last night, with Colonel Nathan Brooks' voice mentioning Shadow Forge and the asset, still echoed in her mind, each syllable tightening the knot in her chest. Her brother, David, was alive. Trapped in a web she'd only begun to untangle. Apex was no longer just a toxic gym, it was a piece of a larger puzzle. And Sarah was done hiding. She zipped her hoodie, her scar-covered knuckles brushing the photo of David in desert fatigues, and stepped into the night, ready to face the shadows head-on. At Apex, the fallout was palpable. The whiteboard rankings, once Ethan's shrine, were defaced, his name scratched out in angry black marker. Coach Derek Lawson, 45, had vanished for days, leaving Tyler Brooks to bark orders, his gold chain glinting as he glared at Sarah during morning drills. The gym's atmosphere was a mix of resentment and fear. Students avoided her, but their whispers followed. She's trouble. Lucas Reed, 22, the skinny white belt who'd recorded her victory, lingered after class, his glasses fogging as he whispered. They're freaking out. Lawson's been on calls with some suit, talking about cleaning up. Sarah nodded, her mind racing. Emily Hayes, 26, Lawson's niece and a blue belt, slipped her a USB drive during a water break. Found this in his office, Emily murmured, her buzzed undercut catching the light. Bank transfers, coded names. He's in deep with someone. Sarah pocketed the drive, her instincts humming. Emily's rebellion against her uncle was a lifeline. But trust was a luxury Sarah couldn't afford. Not yet. That evening, Sarah met Robert Mitchell, 55, at a dive bar on Stonehaven's outskirts, the kind of place where neon beer signs flickered and nobody asked questions. Mitchell, a former intelligence officer with gray stubble and tired eyes, had been her mentor in Shadow Forge, the Black Ops program that trained her and David. His calloused hand slid her a burner phone across the sticky table. David's alive, he said, his voice gravelly, confirming what the photo had hinted. Shadow Forge went rogue after you left. Colonel Nathan Brooks turned it into a private hit squad. David was too valuable, his skills, his loyalty, so they faked his death in 17 to keep him off the grid. Sarah's heart pounded, guilt and hope colliding. Why me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mitchell's gaze softened. You're the better asset. Brooks wanted you controlled, not dead. David's their leverage. He handed her a dossier, its pages detailing Brooks's network, shell companies, black sites, and a name tied to Apex, Lawson. The gym was a front, funneling money for Brooks' operations. Sarah's victory had blown their cover, and now they were closing in. Back at her apartment, Sarah pored over the USB from Emily, her laptop humming as she decrypted files. Bank transfers linked Lawson to a Nevada-based LLC, coded emails mentioning the Phantom problem. Her phone buzzed with another encrypted message. No sender, just a single line. You're not supposed to be alive. Tucked in her car's wiper was a note, scrawled in red ink. Stop, or he's gone. Fear clawed at her, but she pushed it down, her training kicking in. She traced the scar on her knuckles, memories of David flooding back, late-night grappling in their Baltimore backyard. His voice steady as he taught her to escape a choke. You're tougher than they think, he'd said, his smile warm. She'd believed he was dead, had carried that grief like a stone. Now, knowing he was alive, she felt the weight of her failure to find him sooner, but guilt wouldn't help him. Action would. She cross-referenced Mitchell's dossier with Emily's files, pinpointing a pattern. Lawson's calls traced to a facility in Nevada, a black site tied to Brooks, The next day at Apex. Sarah moved with purpose, her drills sharper, her eyes scanning for threats. Lucas reported overhearing Tyler mention Nevada shipments, while Emily confirmed Lawson's return. His temper frayed during a sparring session. Sarah caught Lawson watching her, his phone pressed to his ear, his lips forming the word Brooks. The pieces were falling into place, but the danger was closing in. That night, another email arrived, this one with GPS coordinates, a remote site in Nevada, 200 miles from civilization. "Come alone," it read. "He's waiting." Sarah's breath caught. David. It was a trap, obvious as a tripwire. But she had no choice. Brooks was baiting her, using her brother as a pawn. She packed a go bag, burner phone, knife, and a flash drive with her evidence. Mitchell's warning echoed, "Brooks doesn't play fair. He'll kill you both." But Sarah wasn't the scared recruit from Shadowforge. She was Phantom, and she'd rewrite the rules. As she stood in her apartment, the wooden box opened before her. Sarah traced the patches on her military belt, each one a ghost of a mission she'd survived. The photo of her and David stared back, his smile a reminder of why she fought. She'd been a weapon once, shaped by Shadowforge, but now she was something more, a sister, a fighter, a spark igniting a fire. Apex was crumbling, Lawson's empire exposed, but Brooks was the real threat, and Nevada was the battlefield. She slipped the burner phone into her pocket, her resolve steel. "If this is a trap," she whispered, her voice steady, "I'll be the one setting the rules." The night stretched before her, dark and unyielding. But Sarah Jackson was no stranger to shadows. She was ready to step into them, to find David, and to burn Brooks' world to the ground. The Nevada desert stretched endlessly before Sarah Jackson, its barren expanse swallowing the headlights of the battered SUV as she drove toward the GPS coordinates from the cryptic email. At 30, Sarah was no stranger to traps. Her instincts honed by Shadowforge's brutal training and missions she'd buried deep. The coordinates pointed to a black site 200 miles from civilization, a concrete scar in the sand where Colonel Nathan Brooks, 62, held her brother, David, as leverage. Sarah's scar-covered knuckles gripped the wheel, the photo of her and David in desert fatigues burning in her mind. Lucas Reed, 22, sat in the passenger seat, his glasses reflecting the dashboard's glow, his nervous energy palpable. Emily Hayes, 26, Lawson's niece and a blue belt, checked a map in the back, her buzzed undercut catching the moonlight. They were an unlikely trio. Sarah, the soldier, Lucas, the college kid turned ally, Emily, the rebel breaking free of her uncle's shadow. But they were all she had. The email's warning, "Come alone," was a lie Sarah ignored. Brooks wanted her dead, but she'd play his game and break his rules. The SUV rattled over the dunes, the air thick with the promise of violence, and Sarah's resolve was steel. She'd find David or burn Brooks' world to ash. The facility loomed ahead, a squat bunker half buried in sand, its rusted gates guarded by two armed men in tactical gear. Sarah killed the headlights, parking a half-mile out. "Stay low. Move fast," she whispered, handing Lucas and Emily earpieces from her go bag. She'd trained them in Stonehaven's empty lots, basic evasion, silent signals, knowing they weren't soldiers but trusting their grit. Lucas clutched a flashlight, his hands trembling. Emily's jaw was set, her knife tucked in her belt. Sarah's own gear was minimal, a combat knife, a flash drive with evidence, and a small explosive charge from her Shadowforge days. They crept through the dark, Sarah's movements fluid, her senses razor-sharp. She neutralized the guards with silent precision. Pressure points, not blades, zip-tying them to a fence. The bunker's steel door was ajar, a deliberate invitation. Sarah's pulse steadied, her training overriding fear. "This is it," she said, her voice low. If it goes south, run. Lucas nodded. Emily's eyes burned with defiance, and they stepped into the lion's den. Inside, the bunker was a maze of concrete corridors, lit by flickering fluorescents, the air stale with dust and oil. Sarah led, her steps silent, her knife ready. Motion sensors blinked, but she disabled them with a flick of a wire cutter. Her Shadow Forge skills second nature. Voices echoed ahead. Brooks's gravelly tone, calm but commanding. They reached a control room, its walls lined with monitors showing grainy feeds, a cell with a man, head bowed, wrists cuffed. David! Sarah's heart lurched, but she forced focus. Brooks stood at a console, 62, his silver hair cropped military short, his suit incongruous in the grim setting. 4 armed guards flanked him, their rifles ready. "You're late, Phantom," Brooks said, not turning, his voice chillingly familiar. "I expected you alone." Sarah stepped forward, her allies hidden in the shadows. "Where's my brother?" she demanded, her voice steady. Brooks smiled, cold as ice. "He's leverage. Join me. 1 year, and he walks. Refuse, and you both die." Sarah's mind raced, weighing options. Brooks' offer was a trap. Shadow Forge had taught her that loyalty was a lie. She caught Lucas's eye, signaling a diversion. He tossed a flash grenade from the shadows, its blast blinding the guards. Sarah moved like a specter, disarming one with a wrist lock, her knife slashing another's rifle strap. Emily tackled a third, her jiu-jitsu training kicking in, while Lucas scrambled to the console, unplugging feeds. Brooks drew a pistol, but Sarah was faster, her flying armbar forcing him to the floor, his weapon skittering away. "Where is he?" she hissed, her elbow pressing his throat. Brooks laughed, defiant. "You're too late. Phantom, he's not here." Rage surged, but Sarah held control, zip-tying him. She grabbed a hard drive from the console, Shadow Forge's secrets, David's location, maybe more. Alarms blared, boots thundered in the distance. "Time to go," she said, hauling Brooks to his feet as a hostage. They sprinted through the corridors, guards closing in. Sarah rigged her explosive charge to a gas line, setting a 60-second timer. Bullets grazed the walls, and Lucas yelped as a shot nicked his arm. Emily dragged him forward, her knife flashing to deter a pursuer. Sarah shoved Brooks ahead, using him as a shield. "Keep moving," she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. They burst into the desert, the SUV a distant speck. The bunker erupted behind them, a fireball lighting the night, the blast wave knocking them to the sand. Brooks slipped free in the chaos, vanishing into the dark, his voice echoing. "This isn't over. Phantom!" Sarah cursed, but the hard drive in her pocket was a victory. They piled into the SUV, Sarah flooring it, the desert swallowing their trail. Lucas clutched his arm. Emily bandaged it, and Sarah's mind churned. David wasn't there, but the drive held answers. As dawn broke, Sarah decrypted the hard drive in a roadside motel, its files confirming Brooks' network, black sites, hit lists, and a coded reference to David's new location, Eastern Europe, under guard. Her heart sank. He was alive, but far from reach. Memories flooded back. David's laugh as they sparred in Baltimore, his promise to always have her back. She'd come close, but Brooks had outplayed her. Yet the drive was a weapon, evidence to dismantle his empire. Lucas, pale but resolute, vowed to help. Emily. Her defiance hardened, swore to take down Lawson's role in Apex. Sarah looked at them, her allies, her family now. "We're not done," she said, her voice steel. The bunker was gone. Brooks was wounded, and Sarah was no longer Phantom, the pawn. She was a hunter, and David was her mission. The desert stretched behind her, but ahead lay a new fight, one she'd face with fire in her soul. The desert dust of Nevada still clung to Sarah Jackson's boots as she stood in the dim light of a Stonehaven motel room, the hard drive from Colonel Nathan Brooks' black site humming on her laptop. At 30, Sarah had faced death before, on Shadow Forge missions, in the crucible of Apex Martial Arts Academy. But the weight of hope was heavier than any fight. The drive's decrypted files confirmed her brother, David, was alive, held in a covert facility in Eastern Europe, his skills weaponized by Brooks's rogue network, the photo of them in desert fatigues, his smile warm against a war-torn sky, anchored her resolve. Lucas Reed, 22, nursed his bandaged arm, his glasses fogged from exhaustion but his eyes bright with loyalty. Emily Hayes, 26, leaned against the wall, her buzzed undercut catching the lamplight, her defiance now a fire that matched Sarah's. They'd escaped the bunker's explosion, outrun Brooks' men, and swapped their SUV for a nondescript sedan to slip back into Stonehaven undetected. Apex was a battle won. But the war for David loomed. Sarah's scar-covered knuckles tightened around the hard drive. She wasn't just Phantom anymore. She was a sister, a leader, and a force no one could bury. Stonehaven's coastal chill greeted them at dawn. The town's quiet streets, a stark contrast to the chaos they'd left behind. Sarah led Lucas and Emily to a safe house, a cramped apartment rented under a fake name. There, she shared the drive's secrets, Shadow Forge's hit lists, financial trails, and a coded message hinting David was planning his own escape. "He's fighting back," Sarah said, her voice steady but laced with pride. Lucas, still shaken, offered to hack local networks for more intel, his college coding skills proving vital. Emily, fueled by years of resentment toward her uncle, Coach Derek Lawson, vowed to dismantle Apex's role in Brooks's scheme. They pored over the files, tracing Lawson's payments to Brooks's LLCs, evidence that could topple both men. Sarah's mind flashed to Baltimore, to David teaching her to grapple in their backyard, his voice calm. "You're tougher than they know." She'd carry that strength now, for him, for them all. The safe house became their war room, and Sarah felt a shift. She wasn't alone anymore. Apex Martial Arts Academy was a ghost of its former self. The viral video of Sarah's 14-second victory over Ethan Carter had sparked a reckoning. With students quitting and sponsors pulling funds, Lawson's absence left a vacuum, and Emily seized it. Backed by Sarah's evidence, she confronted the gym's board, exposing Lawson's financial crimes. By mid-May 2025, Apex was rebranded as Mat 14, a nod to Sarah's triumph. Emily took charge, her blue belt now a symbol of change, and transformed the gym into a community hub. She banned the old bro culture, opened classes for kids and women, and hired Lucas as a coach. Lucas, once a nervous outsider, taught anti-bullying workshops, his arm healed, his confidence growing. Sarah watched from the sidelines, her presence quiet but pivotal. The whiteboard rankings were gone, replaced by a mural of diverse fighters, their faces a testament to the new era. Mat 14 wasn't just a gym, it was a beacon, proof that systems could change. The wider world took notice. Brooks' empire began to crumble as Sarah leaked the hard drive's files to federal authorities through Mitchell, her old mentor. By May 19, 2025, news broke. Brooks arrested in D.C., charged with fraud and conspiracy. His black sites exposed. Lawson, implicated in the leaks, was detained. His gym empire reduced to a footnote. Ethan Carter, 28, resurfaced at the National Grappling Expo in Portland, his black belt tarnished but his ego intact. He challenged Sarah to a public match, framing it as redemption. Sarah accepted, not for pride but for closure. The expo's mat was packed, cameras flashing, but Sarah was calm. She swept Ethan in 20 seconds, her triangle choke flawless. And when he tapped, he stood, offering a grudging nod. "Respect," he muttered. The crowd roaring. Sarah didn't smile. She didn't need his approval. The fight was a message. She was unstoppable. At the expo's closing, Sarah took the mic, her voice steady, her words raw. "This isn't about belts or wins," she said. The crowd hushed. "It's about who we choose to be when the world tries to break us. Mat 14 isn't just a gym. It's a promise to fight for respect, for everyone." The applause was deafening, but Sarah's eyes were on Lucas and Emily, their faces glowing with pride. Back in Stonehaven, a new email arrived, encrypted, no sender. It held a photo. David, holding a newspaper dated May 15th, 2025, his eyes sharp, a coded message scrawled on the back. "I'm moving. Trust the plan." Sarah's heart raced. David was alive, scheming, just as she'd hoped. The fight wasn't over, but she wasn't alone. Mitchell's dossier hinted at a new lead in Ukraine, and Sarah began planning, her allies ready to follow. As twilight fell over Stonehaven, Sarah stood in Mat 14's quiet gym, the mat cool beneath her feet. She meditated, her breath slow. The photo of David tucked in her guy. Lucas taught a kids' class nearby, their laughter a new rhythm. Emily sparred with a student, her movements fierce but kind. Sarah traced the scar on her knuckles, whispering, "I'm not a belt, not a rank. I'm what they tried to bury." The gym's mural glowed under the lights, a symbol of their victory. Brooks was down, Lawson was gone, and Mat 14 rose from Apex's ashes. But David was out there, and Sarah's fight was far from done. She stepped onto the mat, Lucas and Emily joining her, their faces a mirror of her resolve. The coastal wind howled outside, but inside, Sarah Jackson was afire, unbroken, ready for the next battle. If Sarah's story moved you, like, subscribe, and share it. Tell us, where are you watching from? Your voice and support keep this fight alive.